So I thought I should start from something else, something, well, I don't want to say a more basic knowledge because value making is a huge and complex field, but I needed someone to teach me how to use a chisel. So I found this, actually my husband who is there will play with me later, found for me a course of value making, and so that's how I started only 7 years ago. And then when the pandemic came, it was very natural to stay there the whole day making instruments, and it also felt like the right thing to do. I really loved the thing that on the next day you can see what you've done the day before, contrary when you play, you don't really know the next day if you played well or not the day before. You're never sure of what you did, while you can see what you've done, and you can it teaches you to accept the result of your work and start from there again and try to make it better. But the fact that you can see what you did on the previous day is something that really teaches you to accept, okay, this is what I'm doing now, so I need to start from here and make something better today. And this was the beautiful thing for me.
Wow. So you started making 7 years ago?
Yes.
Oh, wow. She has an amazing instrument here, and that makes me think about the fact that we have some who have been to formal training, and others that, like I grew up in this, and what we've done in our shop, my father was self-taught maker, and just knowing, or with the curiosity to make things work, just like you, that taking things apart and seeing how they function and how do we do this and that. And so it just kind of grew from there, and but we have always pretty much been as self-taught, and I think that sounds true of you. And Sophia, with your you didn't go to a formal. Your schooling was
my father.
Yes. So history.
Yeah. And I was so the first time I went to Oberlin at the violin workshop where I met Itzel also, and I was very scared because I was feeling like I'm not a legit one. I learned, like, I didn't go to school, I don't have a diploma. But then I met so many like amazing colleagues, and that everybody has a different story. So, but what links all that together is the passion, and what Daniela is saying, that like when they asked my father which is the best instrument you ever made, and he's 76, he said, I still have to make it, because that's how you feel, and this is what like brings us together.
I think that's a very significant concept, to feel that you're still striving toward that goal. Now, do all of you play, or you are all musicians? Correct.
Yeah.
I've heard 3 of you play. Stephanie, do you play?
A little bit.
Okay.
Just to make interest.
So, but your appreciation of, coming from a player's background, I think that's a big thing to be able to, you're hearing, you know what you want to hear, and you're able to put that into your work, I'm sure.
Yeah, we can also help the musician better if we know what they're talking, because we can play. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important that there are great makers also that can play, and it's perfectly fine. But and personally, my perspective, it's important to me to know what is the description of the sound of the artist. It's so difficult to describe the sound that if we don't use the same shoes that they are using, we cannot go further. And the instrument that we're making is part of the body of the musician. So it's really important to have a connection with the musician, to understand the hands, the tension, everything is important enough to work together. So it's, for me it's important, and I wish I can play cello because I love cello.
And I know that at least 3 of you, because I just met Stephanie this morning, but as far as like other interests in your life artistically, how do those do you have other interests and influences that work their way into your violin making craft?
Okay. Yeah, I think for me, making an instrument out of a natural resource, which wood is, and to that extension, I do enjoy very much visiting the outdoors in the sense of backpacking and being in nature. And I think that's part of the connection overall, because you cannot just say, okay, this is a violin. There has been a tree, or take a violin, at least a couple of trees, different trees that had to grow in a certain environment to develop acoustical properties that make them useful to us.
Right.
And that is very specific, actually. And I think that's something we have to keep in mind in a world where resources are getting smaller and smaller, and good wood is harder and harder to find. I mean, especially the bass players were the first ones to actually felt that. Bass makers, and so I think it's very important not to lose that connection to nature and how nature functions, and I think that's also how, in extension, musical instruments function.
And on that, in journey, typically would you have an occasion to visit the forest where they're harvesting? Have you been to that?
Yeah, especially, I mean, as I was studying midnight, it was difficult to just, go on the mountain hikes, as you probably do in northern Italy too, and visit all these areas where wood is getting harvested, and that's also for me an important connection to make. The more connected I feel to the wood, the more personal invested I am in it. So that's for me a very, very important emotional connection.
And I know, Sophia, your family has old wood.
Yes,
And-
yes, exactly. So the story of the old thing we have, some of them come from an old church, because it happened that a few years ago in close to the Bologna area there was a very bad earthquake, and so this roof collapsed, and so we bought these big beams that were on the roof, also to help like to remaking the roof for the church and to help like the reconstruction of the area. And then we just discovered that was the spruce, and that was really the good spruce that we could use to make our violins and violas and cellos too. And so there is a beautiful science that is the dendrochronology that can analyze the grain of the spruce, because spruce has a white and black line. So every spring there is a new white line on the tree, and every winter there is a black line. So if, let's say, the winter it's very long, then we have a big black. The spring is very wet and raining, we have another. So every year is different. So if you send to the university a big sample, so if a beam is like that, you can have a big sample of the tree, then they can really tell you the year of the tree and like the area, because all the trees that grow in the same area have the same like growth. So this is really amazing, and we discovered that it was wood coming from the 1600s and 1700s, and then was cut in the 1800s. And so, yeah, so this is like also second, I mean, studying the material we are using, I was studying of how ebony is, like how is the ebony tree,